I'm former Mayor Jake Godbold. I was mayor of the city of Jacksonville from 1979 to 1987.
And you were mayor of a consolidated city government. Well, what are your thoughts about that as a form of government? Was it a good idea?
I think it was a great idea. I've been very pleased with consolidation. I think it's just a great government. I think the team that put it together, did a great job. And at that time, there were those people who, I was on a 9-man council. I was serving, when consolidation passed, I was pretty busy because I ended up on 2 governments. We were going to be a government going out, and here was a government so I was a councilman on the old government, and I had been elected as Hans Tanzler had been, and we had a 9-man council, a 9-person council, and we were doing the business of the city, and we were having to meet to do the business of the new government that was going to start.
Which was a 19-member.
Which was a 19-member. And I guess there was a lot of people who were already elected, Harry, that fought this thing, the old county commissioners and other people that was going to do away with a lot of jobs, and it was going to do away with duplication there. We had a city council of 9 people. We had a city commission of I think 7 people who run the departments, and then we had a mayor, and then we had a county commissioner right across the street in the courthouse, and a lot of those people didn't want to stamp this approval of a new government because they would all lose their jobs. So there was a lot of opposition to consolidated government. And really, we didn't know, and the people that were involved in writing the charter and putting it together really didn't know if this thing was going to pass. And they probably put in some things that we shouldn't have put, that they shouldn't have put in. I wasn't a part of writing it, but it turned out that it was a good move on our part. I love the thing I like about there's 2 things that I like about consolidation so much. I love the idea of having a strong mayor because the buck stops there. It doesn't matter anything else. This charter is made for a strong leadership. And if in consolidated government, in our government in Jacksonville, if you don't have, that's a leadership role, and it has to have a good, strong leader in that government. Now, he may be a bad leader, he may be a good leader, but then you got, and the other part I like is the 9-person council. I mean the 19-person council. I think that hit it just right.
And the balance between at-large and district council members?
Yeah, I love the 5-man council. There's been some talk about, and I think the minority community would be absolutely wrong and wanting to do away with those and put them in districts, because those 5 people, when you're running at large, you need all the vote. You need to go out into those neighborhoods and listen to the total count of the city. The minority neighborhoods, they have 1 district councilman, and then they have 5 councilmen there that, if they're smart, they're going to be representing them too. If they're doing their job right, those 5 councilmen, and I was always a councilman at large, and I had a great rapport with the minority community. And that's the part that helped me be mayor later on, because I listened to those people, I worked with those people, and I knew the leaders in the community. I knew what their needs were, and I listened to them. They listened to me, and I think that's good for the minority community. Now, if you got a guy that's running at large and he doesn't pay much attention to him, I don't think he's going to. They can vote him out of there because they got 26, 27, 30% of the vote out there. But they need to take advantage of those 5 councilmen there and their district councilmen.
So the way the city works is if you're the council president and there's a vacancy in the mayor's office, you become mayor. Yeah. And that's what happened with you, right?
That's a long story and a funny story.
Okay.
I really had no idea. I was serving my 3rd year. On the old council, there were only, I think, Mary Singleton and maybe one other person that got elected
to the new government.
To the new government, and we and I really had 12 years in the government at that time, on the council, and 2 years on the old city council, and then about 9 years on the Consolidated Council. I was ready to go home. I didn't want to serve anymore. I had a business, a wife, and a son, and I really was looking forward to going home. I think the limits on term limits, let me say, a lot of people don't want to leave. That's a good thing, term limits, because you need to get out of there. You don't need to hang around and lose your family and your business and everything. 8 years is enough. And but I was ready to go home, and we elected our first black minority president in the city of Jacksonville, I guess, was Earl Johnson, who was a councilman at large, and who had served on the council and been, as we all know, the history of consolidation, a big backer of consolidation and part of writing consolidation. So we elected Earl as the president of the council for the first year. Well, Charlie Webb, who was a real active, kind of go-between in the council, everybody liked Charlie. Charlie had come to me and he said, Jake, Linwood wants to be president the 2nd year of consolidation here. And how about you? What do you want to do this last 4 years, And I said, well, I've already been president once. I don't really want to be president again. And he said, well, you need to pick a year that you want to be president, because Linwood wants to be president the 2nd year. And Earl's the president now. So I said, well, I'll just be president the 3rd year. I'll put my name in the hat for the 3rd year. He said, well, that's what it'll be, because we'll all vote for y'all, both of y'all. So it turned out Earl had some problems, and he resigned from the council, and that moved Linwood, being he was the vice president, that moved him into the 1st year, and he finished that term. So Linwood said, well, he came back to me later on and said, I want to be president next year too. And so I said, Linwood, we're all kind of moving up here with Earl leaving. He said, well, I only had, he had about a year almost, because Earl didn't stay in as president for 3 or 4 months, if I remember correctly. And so Linwood became president his year, 2nd year too. So Linwood really had thought about being mayor. He really wanted to be mayor. And but I hadn't thought about it at all and didn't want to. I wanted to go home. So as it worked out, his timing was all wrong. And he had had to have been mayor, he had had to have been president 3 years, because Hans didn't resign when Hans decided to run for governor. And and he had another 6 months left on his term. Everybody thought he would just, Linwood had it figured out that he would resign when he ran. And then the president would be the mayor, which would be Linwood. And so I said, okay, I'll just back up another year. I'll tell my people that's pledged to me. And back then we didn't have to have them written. If somebody gave you the word, that was it. You knew you had those votes. So I had my votes lined up, and so I said, Linwood, I'll just release all my votes if you want to be president again next year. Lanahan didn't think that was a good idea for him to be president 3 years in a row. So it just didn't work out for Linwood, and it just happened that Hands resigned when I was president of the council. And it was just, that's the way it went.
So you didn't go home, you went to the mayor's office.
Yeah, I went to the mayor's office
Right.
with no idea of ever running for mayor. But then when we got up there and we got some stuff going and we got enthusiastic and we put a team together, we kept most of Hans' people. We really didn't change a lot of people. We didn't throw a lot of people up. We just moved out some staff members and brought some staff members in. I brought Don McClure in as my chief aide there. And Lex left when Hans left. And so then we decided that, and some other people came, and people always said everybody wanted me to run. Well, everybody didn't want me to run, but there was some people that did. And so I kind of like being mayor. Harry, I really never enjoyed the council.
Why not?
Well, it was too, you didn't have enough, you didn't have a strong mayor there. You were there to see that the business of the government went along, and it was 19 people. It was a controllable amount, and you needed a good president and everything, but you didn't have that feeling like you did as a strong mayor. You could really make a difference as mayor to everybody, to these little poor communities and that didn't know how to get anything done. You could help people that you've never been able to help again. I like that feeling that you could really make some things happen there. And one of the things that happened to me, Harry, that was probably, that I don't think there's another mayor had this happen. I was on the council 12 years. That was a great, no other mayor had been down on the council for 12 years. I knew those people down on the council. And the first thing I told my staff is it doesn't matter who we have, what kind of dreams we have, what kind of visions we have. If we don't have 10 votes on the council, we can't get anything done. And I knew how the council worked. And I knew the council always wanted to be on the plane when it was taking off, not when it was fixing to crash. And I knew that I had a good communication with the council. And I had some great presidents and everything. Then the other thing that happened to me, Harry, that was very important to me was about 10 days after I got elected, a guy named Albert Ernest, who was president of the Barnett Bank, came in. And he said, Jake, you know, and this really was probably one of the most important things that happened to me as mayor. He had an apartment, he came in by himself, and he said, Jake, you're the mayor now. And you could go around and cut ribbons and kiss some babies, be popular, or you could roll up your sleeves and really get out on that limb and make some things happen. He said, now, you have every reason to just cut the chamber and the business community out, because most of them voted for Lou Brantley, who was president of the Senate at the time. They knew Lou better, and Lou was a good man, and that was a good race, and I love Lou. But you're the mayor now. Now, you could be vindictive, and you could just kick some butts, or you could roll up your sleeve and make a big partnership. Now, I'm not speaking for me. I'm over here representing the chamber today because the business community wants to see you lead this city. We've been, for 9 years now, we've been going in and out. We don't know if, we don't know who the leader is. The chamber, who's the priority? When we go to Washington and we go to Tallahassee, the chamber's got one set of priorities. The mayor's got another set. The council's got something else they want to do. And there's no set pattern. We need one voice. Now, if the chamber tells me and the business community tells me, if you will lead, we'll follow and we'll be there. But we got to have one voice, one set of priorities. We could do it together, or we could keep going like we've been going now. Well, that gave me the opening, Harry, that I knew I had the businessman's ear then. And when I went to put people on boards and authorities, when I would call the president, Wilford Lyons, at Independent Life, and say, I need somebody from your company to serve on the downtown development, and he'd say, I got a good guy, I'd say, no, I want you. And I got some people to serve on boards because of that commitment that he had made. And so we felt I had a great partnership with the business community.
So what would you say are the highlights of the Godbold years as mayor?
Well, we had some lowlights and we had some highlights,
Right.
and I don't know, Harry. There was a lot of things happen, but I like being mayor. I like bringing the community together. I think I represented a lot of things happen, bringing Mayo Clinic here and being a part of that. And I didn't bring them here, Mr. Davis did, but I was a big part of it. And Mr. Davis made me a big part of it. The thing about NFL football, bringing Ursay here, having 50,000 people out there. Mayor Delaney always asked me, said, Jake, did you really think, really in your heart, did you really think we could ever get a football team? And I said, John, I really, he said, we thought you was crazy over at the courthouse. We just thought you were putting on a show, a political thing and everything. But Harry, when I went in office, and the chamber had just done a poll, and they came over with that poll, and they said, you know, before you get economic development, downtown development, try to get some new taxes into here and start the city moving, you got to overcome one other thing that's more important than everything else. And I said, well, what's more important than that? They said the attitude of the city. They said it's really bad. They don't trust their elected officials. They don't consult. They're not going anywhere. You know, there's just a lot of bad things out there. But the attitude is the poorest I've ever seen in a city that our company's done a poll. So I felt that whatever we wanted to do, that we needed to get everybody involved and get some enthusiasm and get some drum beating going. And the paper once called Mike Talbot me Barnum and Bailey, you know, and everything. But we were trying to do that. We knew that. But we were trying to drive up enthusiasm for our own city. That it's not just a South Georgia city that's smelly and dirty and everything, but to change the attitude of the public. And one day I was sitting at home and I saw the Houston Oilers come out. And at that time in Texas, they were having a pretty bad time over there. But sitting there that day with that blue and white and Bubba Phillips there and the big cowboy hat and everybody sat in that stadium and they did that camera around and you see blacks and whites and old and young. That day they were all together. And I called Mike Tomlin that day and I said, dude, that's the answer. And I wasn't thinking about the economic development. I was thinking about what this is what we need to change and bring us all together. We need an NFL team. So we did a lot of work with that through the years. And I told Delaney, Mayor Delaney, I said, John, I didn't know if I would ever get a team, but I knew that what I was doing then, that someday some mayor would be able to bring an NFL team to Jacksonville. And we came close a number of times, but we finally got a team, and I lived to see that happen. So the things we did, that was very exciting and everything. But there were a lot of things. But I think one of the main things is we had peace in the valley. I represented the black community, but I represented the old boys as well, and the chamber. Russ walks a thin line, especially in today's type of politics.
Well, one of the things
I didn't look at Republicans and Democrats either. I never asked anybody who went on the board. I represented all the people, or tried to.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is I think you had a somewhat different attitude about taxes, because previously the key thing about the city government was we're cutting the budget, cutting taxes every year.
Well, I think that I still believe that. I think one of the things that's been wrong, well, one of the things that I felt like that happened in Consolidated, we promised too much. We didn't know that it was going to pass like it did. We should have never let the beaches vote to be in and vote to be out at the same time. We either should have brought them in or brought them out. But that was a carrot to them to vote for it, but vote against it. Well, it ended up, it was overwhelmingly voted in. And another thing was we kept telling people before consolidation how by consolidating, doing away with duplication, that how cheap it was going to be and how people's taxes was going to be lowered and everything. I think that was a mistake, because while the rest of the state was growing and taking advantage of programs that were coming out of the federal government at that time, we did. The one thing we did was we kept those taxes low. And today, the taxes aren't much higher than they were when we started. But we paid a big price for that. We didn't move as fast as Fort Lauderdale did, and Orlando did, and Miami did, and we wasn't able to keep our promises in consolidation. Look at those poor neighborhoods in the city right now today. They still don't have the type of services that they need and should deserve and everything.
Now, and people who in 2018 have some second thoughts about consolidation are in large part concerned about those communities that they say the promises that were made were not kept. But how can you cut taxes and keep those promises?
Well, you can't do it, and that's where we've been shorthanded. We kept the promise of keeping the taxes down, but at the same time, we paid a big price for it. Now, my thought is this, Harry, is I raised taxes and got reelected by a big margin. Really never had any great opponents and everything. But I went to the public, I told them what we wanted to do, where we were trying to go. I communicated to them. I think you always going to have 30% or 20% of the people out there that says, we don't need to, we just leave us alone. Just leave us alone. We don't care. But the majority of people, if they know the money's being spent right, and their kids and their grandkids are going to see what's going to happen for a better, prosperous city, then, when I used to go out and we brought 179 new businesses here to Jacksonville during that period of time. During the time I talked to corporations and people, they want to know about our education. We have a good education system. What will my people going to do on their leisure time? What kind of boat ramps you have? What kind of libraries do you have? What kind of leisure, is the water clean? This type of things. Those are the environment. Those are the things that I found that business people, when Mayo was going to come here, they didn't ask about the taxes. They didn't. Their people were willing to pay. They came from a city that paid, but they wanted good services here, and I think you got to go to the public. John Delaney proved that in his bond issue. He wanted to do some programs that needed to be done, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to do them. I was jealous. That ballpark he built over there, what a great thing he did over there, and redoing the auditorium and everything. But he went to the public, and he told them what he's going to do and what was going to be in that bond issue, and the people voted for it.
But maybe the people who are unhappy today with consolidation should direct their unhappiness toward some people who were elected to office rather than the form of government. Consolidation itself may not be their issue. It may be politicians who.
That's right. It's not the government. It's the guy that thinks about his next step in government. He doesn't do what's best for the public and for his city. He's doing what's best for his next step in his political career. And you just can't always depend on saying. I remember running my second term, and one of my speech writers had in there that I promise you that I will never raise the taxes. And I didn't use that. And he wanted to resign from my staff because I wouldn't use that. But I never would promise, if you reelect me, I'll never raise the taxes. I think that's wrong. I think there are times that you've got to, but the public will trust you if you do it right and you go to them and let them be on the plane when it takes off and what's going to do. We got the greatest instrument for government to make things happen and get things done with this government we got. But if you got a mayor in there, you got a council in there that's only interested in being reelected, and I got to promise you that I'll never raise taxes if I don't do it, they're absolutely not doing the right thing for the public. There are times we got to pay that price to get the services that our people need out there.
Now, this is going to be speculation, but what do you suppose Jacksonville would be like if consolidation hadn't passed?
I really don't know. It took a lot for the minority community and Earl Johnson, who probably would have been the first mayor, black mayor of this city, and Earl knew it. But he knew it was the right thing to do. But I think that we may very well be looking at a city that would be going broke, that you think is bad, not what it ought to be now. It would have been terrible there, because the city just could not maintain the services to the public and the people out there under a two-set of government.
And annexation had been tried and it got nowhere, basically, right?
Yeah, and we had tried that, and it didn't work. But we hit it at the right time, and timing's everything. And we had some trouble with the city. We had some trouble over in the county commission, and it was just time to make a change, and it was just at the right time. Now, a lot of other cities have tried it and hadn't been able to do it. But I think we're the envy of a lot of cities that tried it and wasn't able to work it. But we did it at the right time, and I think we're way ahead of the game than we would have been had we not had consolidation. But you're absolutely right. the instrument that we have is the right instrument. It just takes the courage, the backbone, and being open with the press and using the press to get your message out and what you want to do and communicate with the people. Because the majority of people understand that you got to have, you can't always depend on growth just to say, well, we're not going to do anything, but we get a lot of growth and a lot of new jobs and a lot of new taxes. There's some good times and bad times, but you got to have the infrastructure and the proper infrastructure to bring new business and new people in here to build your infrastructure, to build your tax base up. And we're still not there. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and you need a good partnership with the state and the federal government, and we had that at that time. That's not there anymore. The cities are kind of on their own more than they've ever been before.
Is there anything about consolidation that if you had been able to tweak it when it was being designed, that you would change? As you have observed it over the years, anything that should have been handled differently in the design of the government?
I love as I said, I love the 19-man council, 19-person council. I love the strength of the mayor and the powers that they gave him. Sometimes the mayor may have a mayor that uses it wrong, but in most cases we've used it right. But the only thing I would say is that I wished we could have worked something out with the beaches where we could have been a stronger government if we had had them with us in the overall plan there. But they wanted to be out, and they still like being out. And I think they've been very lucky to be able to operate with a small budget down there with small neighborhoods. But if we were all together as one government, that's the one thing I would have liked to see. Now, a lot of them they want to be independent. Yep. That's good. But I wish Baldwin and the beaches we had all been one government.
Well, any other thoughts that you would like to offer about consolidation?
No, I just that the one thing that people talk about is this instrument. I think that's wrong. Should you make these 5 at-large councilmen district, bust them up in the district? Don't ever do that. They're your councilman. You got 6 councilmen representing you out there, and those, use them. Don't just go to your neighborhood county. Go to those 5 councilmen and make sure that they're doing their job because you voted for them too.
All right.
And you can vote them out.